So yesterday we talked about functions and we talked about domain and range. Today we're going to continue and we're going to evaluate and we're going to talk about their graphs. We're going to talk about increasing, decreasing. On the next page, we'll also talk about where they're constant. And for some of the problems I filled in just to make the video a little bit on the shorter side. So if we look at a function, what we can say is, I'm going to skip right down here, y equals f of x. And f of x is the same thing as if we say y. And we read it as f of x. And x, y means y is a function of x and it's dependent on x. If we're asked to rewrite an equation in function notation, then you're to solve for y, and then you have to replace it with f of x. You always then would have to replace it with f of x. Now, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to evaluate. So this first one says, let's find f of 3. So basically that says, okay, in the instructions, we're given f of x and g of x. So obviously we're going to replace this in terms in the one that says f of x. And we're going to put 3 in where we have an x. That's all we're going to do. So we're going to say 2 times 3 minus 4, which ends up becoming 6 minus 4, which is 2. That's it. Our next one is g of 3. So now I'm going to use the function with g of x, and I'm going to replace 3 in wherever I see an x. So I have negative 2, and we have to be careful that we have that negative. You can use a scientific calculator. Plus 6 times 3 minus 10. Just make sure that you use your negative sign correctly. So I have negative 2 times 9 plus 18 minus 10. When I do all of that, I'm going to get negative 10. Now, I did the next one. I just replaced x with negative 4, and I got negative 66. So if you want to check that, you can go ahead, pause the video, and do that. Now, the next one says, instead of doing a number, we're going to substitute an a for f of x. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to plug in an a. So this just becomes 2 times a minus 4. So it's 2a minus 4. Now for number 5, I have g of y minus 3. Now this is a binomial, so this is definitely going to be a little bit more algebra. So I have negative 2. I have y minus 3 squared, because remember, I'm plugging in right here, plus 6 times y minus 3 minus 10. So I have to go ahead and I have to use FOIL with this, y minus 3, y minus 3, and then I would multiply by negative 2. So I have negative 2 and I have y squared. This becomes minus 3, which is minus 6y, and then plus 9. Here I'm going to use the distributive property, so I have plus 6y, minus 18, minus 10. Now, if I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video. Now I'm going to distribute that negative 2, negative 2y squared. I have plus 12y, and then I have minus 18. Plus 6y, and then I'm just going to add these two together, minus 28. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to write this in descending order, add all my like terms. The negative 2y squared is by itself, so I have negative 2y squared. I have 12y and 6y is 18y. And then I have negative 18 and negative 28 is going to be negative 46. And so this is my final answer. The next one, I went ahead, I substituted it in for you already, so you can pause the video and try that one if you want to do that one. Now, the next one, what I need to do is I need to rewrite in function notation, and then I need to find f of 5. So this first one is already solved for y, so the only thing I need to do is substitute in f of x for y. So this is 3x minus 4. And then I need to find f of 5. So I'm just going to do 3 times 5 minus 4, which is 15 minus 4, which is going to be 11. Now for this first one, or for number 8, I'm going to do negative 3y equals negative 6x plus 12. Divide by negative 3. So I have y equals 2x minus 4. Now I'm going to write this in function notation. F of x equals 2x minus 4. So I did my first step. I found it in function notation. Now I'm going to plug in an f of 5. So 2 times 5 minus 4, which is 10 minus 4, which is going to be 6. So I had this, and here I also had this, and I had 11. Okay, the last concept we're going to look at is we are going to talk about when functions are increasing, decreasing, where they're constant. We're also going to go ahead and look back at the domain. And how we do this is we look at our graphs from left to right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my domain. Remember, our domain are our x values. So I go ahead and this quadratic, and we're going to learn that all quadratics are x values because these arrows would continue to positive infinity and negative infinity. So this would keep going. So my x's would get bigger and they would get smaller. So my domain goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. And when I see anything with infinity, I use parentheses. Now my range, I always go from the lowest point to the highest point. My lowest point is negative 4. So I have a bracket, negative 4. And then it's going up towards infinity. Those are my y values, and then parentheses. Now, from increasing and decreasing, I always look at my x values. So you just look at x values, and I go from left to right, just like reading, left to right. Don't worry about how the arrows look on the graph. So now, from left to right, so remember, I have negative infinity for my x's, positive infinity. So from negative infinity, so I don't care about this arrow right here. I don't care about that. So I'm going to go to this lowest point, which my x value is 2. I am decreasing. So from negative infinity, because I'm looking at my x values, from negative infinity to 2, I'm decreasing. So I'm going to put that right here. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing because what you can do is you can always do decreasing and increasing with parentheses. And I'm just going to stay consistent with using parentheses. You technically could have used a bracket for right here, but I'm going to go ahead and just use parentheses. Either way would be correct. But domain, you have to do it this way. Now, from 2, my x value, to positive infinity, I'm increasing. So here, from 2 to positive infinity, I'm increasing. Now, I'm not constant anywhere. Constant would be a horizontal line, which we'll see in the next example. So I'm not constant anywhere, so I could leave a blank or just put that way. Now, looking at a graph and finding f of 4, what I would do is that is asking me, this is saying when my x value is 4, what's my y value? So here my x value is 4, my y value is 0. I would do the same thing. My x value is 2. Oh, my y value is negative 4. Now this is doing the opposite, and this is saying, okay, when y equals negative 4, what does x equal? What does x equal? That's what that's asking you. This is giving you your y. So now, oh, well, we just actually talked about that. So here I have my y. I look at it's negative 4, and my x equals 2. So I can just write 2. Now, discontinuous, we'll talk about, I believe, in the next one. Yep, we'll talk about in the next one. That's if I have to lift my pencil up or my stylus up at any point. This graph is continuous because I can take my stylus and I don't have to lift it up anywhere. So this one I would just leave right here. And we'll talk more about that later on also. Okay, for my next picture, my domain. Now remember, I look at my x's. So I go from negative infinity. Now, even though there's an open circle right here on 0, there's actually this closed circle. So this closed circle trumps it. So I still am covering 0. So then I go to 8. So my domain goes from negative infinity to 8 because my graph stops right here and there's a closed circle. Now, my range, my lowest point is at negative 6, but there's an open circle. So that's parentheses. And then what happens is, we have to look at this, the y values that it covers, it actually covers all of them because this line goes up all the way. So this goes towards infinity. Okay, increasing and decreasing. I'm going to go from left to right. So from the left, so again, remember, this is, I look at my x values, negative infinity, positive infinity. So I'm going from negative infinity now to this low point right here. My x value is 0. I am decreasing. So from negative infinity to my x value of 0, I'm decreasing. So from negative infinity to 0, I am decreasing. Now, I'm again looking at my x values. From 0, again, I'm looking at my x values, to 4. This is constant, or this has a slope of 0. It's a horizontal line. So here I can put from 0 to 4. Now, if you ask me, could I put brackets? You technically can because they're closed circles. Either way, you could put, the AP test will take either way. Then from my x value of 4 to 8, I'm increasing. So here from 4 to 8, I'm increasing. Now here I'm going to do the same thing. I have f of negative 4. So when x is negative 4, oh, my y value is negative 2. When it's 0, now be very careful. You might say, oh, it's negative 2 and negative 6. It cannot be negative 6 because that's an open circle. So the only thing you would take is negative 2. That's super important. When x is 8, my y value is 0. Now, we don't know. We have no idea. We don't have a function over there when it's 12, so we're just going to leave that blank. We don't know. Now, this says it's continuous on the interval. I'm going to actually change this, and let's say, where is it discontinuous? So where is it discontinuous? Okay, so now, if I'm taking, and I always go from the left, if I'm taking my stylus, okay, I'm tracing my graph. Now, in order to get to this next part of my graph, I have to lift up my stylus. I have to jump to this point, and I always look at my x value. So it's discontinuous at 0, at my x value of 0. So I have to lift up, and I have to go now, and I have to trace this graph. So it's going to be discontinuous at x equals 0. Now, this next part says find f of x when it equals 0. So again, this says when y equals 0, what is x? So what I would do is I would go through and I would say, okay, well, let's go ahead and draw a line when y is 0. Okay, are there any points when y is 0? Well, yes, make sure you get all of them. It's at negative 6, and it's going to be at 8. So it could be more than 1 point, it could be 1 point, it could be 2 points, it could be 3 points, but make sure you list all of them, because this is saying, okay, my y value is 0, my x value is -6 and 8. So I need to write both of those. Okay, now I did the next one for you. I want you guys to make sure that you practice this one. This one, if you look at this range, I just want to talk about this. The range, our lowest point's -4, but since it's just one time, that's why I put it in this braces. And then I jump up and I go from 0 to infinity. So that's how I do that range. So go ahead and check this one out on your own, and then make sure that you guys do the homework for tonight. All right, have a great day.